All right. Hi again, everyone, and welcome to this week's Alertus Power Lunch, Wi-Fi panic button solutions for individual protection of organizational leadership. My name is Brooke Petrozelli, and I'm a training specialist here at Alertus. I'm also joined by Sarah Gillum, another training specialist who will be leading the conversation today. During this session, we will explore how to extend the capabilities of your Alertus system by implementing personal Wi-Fi panic button solutions so your faculty and staff can quickly trigger emergency notifications for nearly any situation. This is, of course, an interactive session, so please feel free to ask any questions using the Q&A feature or the chat box. And please be aware that the session is being recorded for training purposes. All right, Sarah, I'll throw it over to you to get started.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you, Brooke. So I will get started by introducing our Wi-Fi panic buttons, and I have one with me here. So as you can see, it's got a pretty sleek and discreet design. It's also very intuitive to use. If you pull it out, you'll notice there's two buttons. There's one big red button that says activate, which will press to activate an alert. And then there is also a yellow test button there where you're able to test the connection to make sure everything is connected and functioning properly. And there is also this option here that you can put the button on a lanyard so your staff can have this on them so that they can initiate an alert at any time if there is an emergency condition that does occur. So I did want to start by just kind of demoing how the button will work. So I am going to press the activate button. So I will see a green LED to let me know it was successful. And now we can see there's an active alert.
Wi-Fi panic button has been pressed by Gillum. Sarah, address 100 North Charles.
And I just realized I forgot to share my screen, I believe. I was showing off the button and then I forgot to share to show you the alert. So I'm gonna roll that back and do it again, but I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen so that you will be able to see what does pop up. So hopefully you can see my Alertus console here. I'm going to cancel that alert and then we'll go ahead and send another one. So I'm gonna do that again just by pressing the activate button. Now we can see there is another active alert in the system and we'll be able to see it popping up. So here's the alert on my desktop.
By Gillum. Sarah, address 100 North Charles Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21,201, United States. Job title, training specialist.
I'll go ahead and acknowledge that alert to close it. But as you can see there, I did pull in a bunch of variables into that message. So I was able to communicate the name of the person, which in this instance was myself who pressed the button. I was also able to pull in address information and even my job title. So if you did want to communicate if it is a member of your executive leadership team or someone else on the team, you can pull in information about their job title as well. So you do have a lot of options and you can configure these panic buttons to send out essentially any type of alert or any message that you'd like. So it's very customizable, and now we will get into some more of the configuration side of things. But I'm gonna go ahead and cancel that second active alert in the system, and then we'll look at some other Wi-Fi panic button information in the Alertus console. So if you are using panic buttons, including Wi-Fi panic buttons, there is a dashboard called the event dashboard that is going to be super helpful. So this dashboard will show you any of the events that are coming in and being processed by your system, including a panic button press. If you are enabled for online maps on your server, you'll be able to see a map with those panic button presses, and then you are also able to scroll down to see all of your event information here. So here we can see I've had a few Wi-Fi panic button presses. I do also have Threat Watcher enabled on my system to monitor some weather feeds. So I also can see some weather events showing up here. But this dashboard is very helpful because in addition to showing the event information, it will also show you the processing details so you can see exactly what your system did in response to that event. So here is my Wi-Fi panic button activation. I can see the time here that was processed, and this field is the MAC address for my Wi-Fi panic button. So every Wi-Fi panic button will have a unique MAC address printed on the sticker on the back of it, so I can tell exactly what button was pressed. I can also see the contact that was assigned to that button. And then here I can see the processing details, so I can see exactly what my system did when that button was pressed. So we can see it matched a custom event trigger that told my system to send out that specific preset alert I created for a Wi-Fi panic button press. And I'm going to click this link here so we can take a closer look at the custom event trigger that I created for my Wi-Fi panic button. I could also access this custom event trigger page if I go under the configure system section and then click on the custom event triggers page. But your Alertus system can use these custom event triggers to specify what alert is sent out if a specific Wi-Fi panic button is pressed. So here's what I have set up for my button. It's enabled, which means it's turned on. And then I was able to set the criteria here. So I'm saying if there is a panic button activation from a Wi-Fi panic button and the MAC address equals this specific value, which is identifying my personal button, and the client name equals Wi-Fi panic button, then if that's true, my system will take this action and send out this specific alert. And I have this criteria to be very specific to just my own Wi-Fi panic button, since Brooke has one as well. And for training purposes, I want to make sure if I press my button, I'm sending the alert to me and not to Brooke. But you could get rid of this top criteria and leave it super generic. This client name equals Wi-Fi panic button would be true if any Wi-Fi panic button in your system was pressed. And there is also some other options for criteria. You can add as many criteria values as you need. For example, if I click the drop down here, I'm able to search for some other criteria. Like for example, I would be able to pull in, say, the incident address. So if I'm looking for a panic button press at a specific address or location, I can narrow it down to that. I could also pull in a specific SSID or BSSID value if I'm looking for location-specific network information. You're even able to pull in information about the contact assigned to the button. So you could pull in something like a specific contact job title. Like you could have a job title that contains executive or something that would indicate the person is part of your executive leadership team. You can have a different alert be set out in that case as well. So you have a lot of options for these criteria values. And if you do have multiple criteria listed out, your system will assume that all of them need to be met or be true, but you can use this advanced settings section if you want to change that. So right now I have 1 and 2 need to be true, but I can change that to be or. So it would either have to be this specific MAC address or be a Wi-Fi panic button client name. So you definitely have a lot of options to set up that criteria. If the criteria is met, then your system will take whatever actions you have specified here. So I have it sending this preset alert that I created for a Wi-Fi panic press. And if you click the edit button next to the preset alert, it will open it up so that you're able to see the alert information and then you can make any changes here. Again, I could also access this preset alert under the configure system section if I came down to the preset alerts page and selected it. But here's the alert that I have going out when I press my button. And here's where I specified that message text that's being delivered. So I'm having it say, emergency, the Wi-Fi panic button has been pressed by this person at this address with this job title. And all of this funny looking text here are examples of system variables. So I'm able to pull in that information that is specific to that particular panic button press to be able to communicate it to emergency responders as quickly as possible. So this panic name variable, for example, is how I was able to pull in my name or the name of the person that pressed the button into that alert. And to add these variables, you're able to click the variables button here, and there'll be event variables. So for our example, the event source is going to be a panic button activation, specifically one coming from a Wi-Fi panic button. And then you're able to click the drop down here to see all of the different variables that you have available. For example, you can pull in the BSS ID that the button is connected to. You're able to pull in the contact job title. That's how I communicated that I'm a training specialist. You're able to pull in a bunch of options, as you can see here. You can pull in the incident address like I did if you want to communicate the street address of the particular panic button event. So there's definitely a lot of options here that you can choose from. And then once you have your message composed here, there are some other preset alert options that you can configure. For example, this is where you set the duration of that alert, so you can specify how long you'd like the alert to be active in your system if a button is pressed. And then you can also set the priority for the alert here. So for emergencies like a panic button press, we definitely recommend keeping it with the highest priority. But if you're testing, it might be something that you'd like to do to pull it down to a lower priority. Basically, the higher priority alert would override anything lower that might be active at the same time. And then the next section here in this preset alert is where we're able to specify the delivery methods or the types of devices that are going to be activated. So right now, if I press my Wi-Fi panic button, I have it just going out to desktops. But say I also wanted a Wi-Fi panic button alert to also activate my alert beacons. Maybe I want it to also activate my text-to-speech speakers. I'm able to pull in any other types of devices that I'd like to include in that activation. And you can click the plus sign here if you do want to edit your alert beacon settings. Maybe I'll leave it on silent, but maybe I do want it to have a visual LED. I'm able to specify that here. And then once you have your delivery method selected, the final step is choosing your recipients. So right now I have this going out to my Building 1 group, but you have a lot of flexibility here. I do recommend if you are setting this up for the first time and you want to test to see what the alert will look like, you do have the option to select individual units. So while you're testing, for example, you could have the Wi-Fi panic button alert just go to your own computer to see what it would look like. Or you could decide to have the Wi-Fi panic button alerts go out to a specific test group or a specific group of emergency responders or police. So you're able to specify exactly who you'd like that alert to go out to. But just for my example, I'm just going to leave it with my Building 1 group. So that is how I have the preset alert set up for my Wi-Fi panic button. And again, these preset alerts are super customizable. So again, you can have that panic button do really anything you'd like once it's pressed. And then I did want to use some additional time to go into some more of the Wi-Fi panic button settings that you can manage from the console. So under this configure system section at the very bottom, there is a section or a tab specific for Wi-Fi panic buttons. So I want to take a look at some of the information that you can see here. At the top, you'll see a number of tiles that will give you some status information for your devices. So for example, you're able to see the total number of Wi-Fi panic buttons that you have on your system. You're also able to see if they're online, and then you can also see if any of them have any action needed. For example, we still need to update the firmware on our Wi-Fi panic buttons, so that's what is being indicated here with this action needed section. And then if you scroll down a little bit farther, you're able to see each of the Wi-Fi panic buttons on your system with their specific settings and information. So at the top here, this is my Wi-Fi panic button. I'm able to see a product image. This is telling me that I need to update the firmware. And then I can also see the contact that is assigned to the button. And you can click the drop down here if you do want to search for or change the contact for that button. And then you are also able to specify a default location for your Wi-Fi panic buttons. So I have my default location as Alertus HQ, but these default locations are basically what will be used if you aren't using a BSS ID value that is specifying a different location. And then you can also see the last time the button communicated with the server, as well as the battery and some other information. And then this enable toggle, again, just means that the button is enabled. So if for whatever reason you want to disable a particular button, you can do that from the console as well. And then if you click edit, you'll be able to see some additional Wi-Fi panic button settings. For example, this monitorable toggle, when it's turned on, that allows the device to be included in monitoring emails. And then from this communication tab, you're able to see a bunch of communication information. So for example, you can see the last time your button communicated with the server. You're able to see the firmware version. You can see IP addresses, battery percentage. You can also tell if the button is currently being charged. So there's a lot of good information here. And then you can also come to this location tab. This is another place that you can assign a default location to your buttons. And then from this access points tab, this is where you can see the Wi-Fi networks that your button is configured to work for. So I can see that my button is configured for Alertus HQ with the Alertus SSID or on the Alertus network. And you can also see the BSSID value here as well. And these BSSID values can be used when you're creating device assignment rules. So you can have the BSSID be detected and then assign dynamic locations to buttons based on that. So definitely a lot of good information here. You can also scroll down to the bottom of the page to see any of the Wi-Fi panic button events that are on your system. Again, you can see a lot of that information from the event dashboard that we looked at, but maybe I'll pull the start date back. Maybe I want to look at all of just my Wi-Fi panic button events since January 1st. I can select that and then I'd be able to see that information here. And then we can also scroll up to this global settings button. So this will manage some more global settings for your buttons. So for example, for your Wi-Fi panic buttons to connect and communicate with your Alertus server, you'll need to specify an authorization code. So this is where you can update or edit that authorization code if needed. We can also come to this notification section, since this is where you are able to enable notifications for your Wi-Fi panic buttons to let you know if any of these warnings are detected. So you're able to enter email addresses here if you want these notification emails to go out to a specific person or multiple people. You can enter comma-separated email addresses here. And then you can decide what notifications you do want to receive emails about. So for example, you can be notified if your buttons have low battery, if they're offline, or if they have any actions needed. And you even have the option to either just notify the email recipients that you have listed here, or you can decide to notify the specific contact that the button is assigned to if they do have an email present in their contact information. And then this personal buttons tab will also give you some more settings for your Wi-Fi panic buttons. So for example, you can turn on this auto update toggle. So if your firmware version is later than what you can see listed on the screen, then auto update would allow the Wi-Fi panic buttons to pull the update from the Alertus gateway to update automatically. And this is also where you can specify what is the minimum or the maximum battery percentage that a button needs before it's reported as having low battery. And then you can also specify the offline time here. So this is the number of hours a device has not communicated with the Alertus server before it ends up being reported as offline. And then you can also manage check-in schedules here. So your Wi-Fi panic buttons have heartbeat schedules that determine when they will automatically check in with the server. And you can have that happen up to 4 times per day. So this is where you can manage and add additional times that you want your buttons to automatically check in with the server. There's definitely a lot of helpful information here. And the last tab that I did want to take a look at is the tab where you're able to add contacts and manage contact information. And these contacts are very helpful to be able to identify the specific person that has that particular Wi-Fi panic button. So to add additional contacts, you'll be able to do that under the Contacts tab on the left-hand side here. This is where you're able to add new contacts. You can also edit information for existing contacts from here. For example, here is myself as a contact in the system. So this is where I was able to fill out this general information. So I have my name here. This is where I entered in my job title, and that's how the Wi-Fi panic button was able to detect and communicate that information. And then you can also specify contact methods here. So this is where I was able to pull in my email address. So this is what would allow me to get those notification emails sent to this email address for anything associated with my button that I have set up to go to me. But I believe that was everything that I wanted to cover today, but we do still have some time left. So I will definitely stay on the call with Brooke. If you all do have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. I do see there's one in the Q&A box.
Yeah, we got one that says, are the Wi-Fi panic buttons and desktop panic buttons configured the same, like how you have the red pop up at the bottom of our panic buttons?
So they definitely can be configured to do the same thing. So when you mentioned having the red pop-up at the bottom for your panic buttons, if you're referring to like the desktop profile or the desktop formatting that you're using, you can definitely have it be the same, whether it is a desktop panic button, like one of these that is pressed, or a Wi-Fi panic button. To check that, you're able to come down to the preset alerts tab and take a look at what preset alerts you have going out. So for example, here is the preset alert that I have for my Wi-Fi panic button, which is probably going to be on the second page here. You can see we do have a lot of preset alerts set up on our system. There it is. And again, I could also go to it from the custom event triggers page like I did previously, but here's what I have going out for my Wi-Fi panic button. And I can see that I'm using the default desktop profile. So that's why when mine went out, it had like the default full screen standard desktop, but you're able to select whatever desktop alert service that you'd like. So you can pick from any of the different desktop formatting options that you have set up on your system. So hopefully that answered the question.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Also, they are configured differently. So configuring a desktop panic button, if you have Alertus Desktop 7, you'll see those options right there on the left side with desktop and desktop panic buttons. Those get configured there, where the Wi-Fi panic buttons, you must use a custom event trigger. So if you are interested in a training around desktop panic buttons, then we are absolutely able to help with that. And I do think that we also have a power lunch coming up around panic buttons as well. So keep an eye out for that. I think it is sometime in Q4, but will be coming your way hopefully by October. Great. Any other questions or comments? And while we wait, I am going to put in the user guide for the Wi-Fi panic button in our knowledge base into the chat. So feel free to go there. That will cover our basically everything that Sarah went through. I also am going to put in our next Zoom link for our upcoming power lunch once that gets loaded. Sorry about that. Should have had this ready. But our next power lunch is going to be Alertus Power Lunch, verify your system functionality before students return to campus. So that will be our main focus. And I'm going to put that link in here. And hopefully you can attend that session. And of course, our recordings of our sessions will be online. I do still see. Okay, and then there's another question from Robert. How are the USB panic buttons different? I didn't realize there were 3 different ones.
That is a good question. Let me share my screen again. So yeah, like Brooke mentioned, and like I demonstrated, the Wi-Fi panic buttons, whenever they're pressed, you have to use custom event triggers that say, like, if a specific panic button is pressed, it's going to do this specific thing. But for the software panic buttons and USB panic buttons, if you're using Alertus Desktop version 7 for those, you're able to manage them under the Desktop Panic Buttons tab. So from here, you have a bunch of different panic button options. These panic button profiles are just the standard software panic buttons where you press it and it sends an alert out. So for example, this fire software panic button, I did leave unassigned to process with custom event triggers. So it's still an option to use custom event triggers for those, but you can also just directly select the preset alert that you want to send from the list here. And the USB panic buttons work the same as that, or they can. If you scroll down to the USB panic button section, this is where you can configure what happens when you press a USB panic button. So I have one here that I set up as an example. And I just have a single USB button, so it looks like this. It's something you just plug into your computer in the USB port, and then you can press that single button to send an alert out. And I selected this active threat preset alert. So again, you can just select the preset alert that you'd like to go out. And we do also have multi-USB panic buttons that look like this. So these, like the name says, have multiple buttons that you can press, but it still can just be plugged into a computer. But you're able to map a different preset alert to each of these buttons, so you can have multiple options. And we do have this standard format here where it has like a specific incident type printed on each button. And there is also a numbered option if you just want to have numbers on each button. That's an option as well. And you're just able to come in here and select what preset alert you want to go out when each of these buttons is pressed.
Great, thanks, Sarah. All right, so we have about 2 more minutes. We'll stay on the call if there are any more questions, but thank you again for your time today and hope to see you at the next session. Have a good Friday, everyone.